That's not Terry. That's Tom and his black cat. Terry is doing what every horse player wants to be doing today, and that's making his way to Southern California to go to the Breeders' Cup this weekend. So I'm very elegant, Tom, and yes, Tom is indeed very elegant, as is your cat. She's getting a little shy now. Jumping
up. Well, I've got one hopping up above me too. So
jump down onto the screen and on your head.
Well, he usually doesn't do that, but you never know.
That would make for some good TV.
Oh,
I would like that. You ever seen the movie with Chris Farley and David Spade when they're salesmen? Black Sheep, I think it's called.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, when the deer in the car kind of goes crazy, that's kind of what I had in mind. That would be pretty funny. And then we could play the Spanish song and sing to it together while we cry.
Yeah. That would be entertaining, but I don't know if anybody wants to hear us sing.
Yeah, I don't know. I've thought about going out for like America's Got Talent. I wouldn't mind, or the Gong Show. I think I'd be a better fit on the Gong Show, but that's no longer.
That's dating you a little bit too.
Yeah, but I think it's more my style, right? You can just get gonged out, bang, you're out of here with the Rick Berry, or whatever his name was, Chuck Berry making fun of you. That would be ideal for sure.
He did a lot of really interesting shows, but he was a nut job.
Well, he's probably a little bit altered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw the movie about him and working for the CIA and all this stuff. So, I mean, it's just, he was just out there.
Speaking of out there, Tom, are the Aussies a little upset that a New Zealand horse won their big race? I mean, what's going on down there?
Yeah, but basically that horse has been running in Australia for most of her career. I mean, it was interesting though, if they had decided to run her in the Arc, what she would have done, because she does like the soft going. She likes any going. I mean, you win 10 Group 1 races, you're not a bad horse.
No. But did you see that after the racing was over, they got a little bit wild, the fans down there at the Melbourne Cup? I like this tweet. St. Kilda last night. 5 women carjacked at knife point. Man stabbed. Multiple brawls. Hoons hijacked streets. I don't know what a hoon is. Must be a local term. Police taunted and businesses forced to close due to violence. Massive mess left behind too. It's like, how does the massive mess fit in there? Residents are furious. Are they mad about the mess or all the craziness going on?
I think both, probably. I was having the same incident up in Milwaukee. There was, 3 killings in my neighborhood along State Street. And the bars are there, and they were having all kinds of car stuff going on and just weird crap. And finally they cracked down. It took them a year and a half, but they finally cracked down, and it seems to have abated now. But
I know why they got rid of horse racing in Chicago. I mean, we have our own. We don't need horse races to carjack.
No. We got other things we can bet on.
Yes, imagine if we had horse racing, how crazy it would be around. It's like they imported Chicago to Australia. I mean, what the hell's going on? I feel like this whole let's try to have some empathy towards criminal experiment is not working very well.
Nope.
Well, maybe the pendulum will swing the other way. But speaking of uncomfortable, there's a big story in Europe. I don't think it's been as big here, but you had 2 jockeys, Robbie Dunn and Bronnie Frost, making claims that one was bullying the other. And when I was reading the article, it was funny to me, and it's not funny in any way, shape, or form. There's a 120-page report on this. I haven't read it all. But the one thing that the newspaper decided to point out is that he swore at her after a race. And I thought to myself, oh, my Lord, if I could sue every time somebody swore at me after I did something that they didn't like, look out, Jeff Bezos.
There'd be a big list.
Oh, yes.
And certainly the colorful language I use when I'm watching horse races would be very interestingly interpreted, because I've let a few expletives out that I probably shouldn't have in company that I probably shouldn't have been saying that in.
Yes, we've all had our slip ups. Yes, a few MFs here and some other things there.
Well, you have other opportunities like baseball, football that you bet on, basketball. So I only have horse racing, but I can certainly dish it out as well as anybody.
I had a very good moment when I thought the mic was off early on when we did the live horse racing and my commentary about the New York Yankees. We won't repeat it. You can go rewind some of the past shows and you'll find it out there. I never deleted it out. I never edited it. I should have edited it. But just to say this, I said the Yankees suck and then something else after it. But in any case, and they did suck, right? So this season's over for them.
Yeah.
So with the story there was those two are going to race for the first time against each other since those allegations. So I wonder what's going to happen. I'd imagine they're just kind of, when the race is over, going to kind of go like that.
Yeah, that or beat each other up with whips. Who the hell knows? It's just, I mean, we've heard the fist fights in the jocks room. So, I mean, it definitely happens. And I can understand sometimes when your life's been put in peril by somebody, it's not the nicest. And speaking of which, I want to put my sympathies out to the Menace family. It was very tragic, his being killed. Traffic accident on the first. I always thought he was a really decent rider, and he always seemed to be giving his best. And was only 34 years old, and it's really sad to see him gone.
Yes, I'm curious as to why he was walking out on the street at night, which is that I haven't been answered. That question hasn't been answered. Like, did his car break down, or what was going on? He's trying to cross the highway too, which is what I understand. So I don't know. Tough to say, but those rural areas, sometimes the streets are a little bit different than what we're accustomed to here in highways. So I don't know. But you mentioned that the two might whip each other. That could take the relationship in a whole different direction. They may no longer be angry at each other anymore.
Well, you never know.
You never can tell. So Terry might not be here, but his sentiment is here. As always, we have Terry's best bet of the day. I don't know how his bet did yesterday. Terry keeps track of those type of things. I'm not the best with details. I mean, I am good at details, my own details, but it's very difficult for me to keep track of other people's details because for keeping track of my details is tedious for me. I'm sure he'll write me in, or if he's watching, he might even type in the comments section. This is what happened, because Terry likes for us to know how his picks went.
No, he works hard, so he likes to get some credit for himself, and I don't blame him.
Nor do I. He keeps track of everything. But anyway, Finger Lakes, race number 5 for Terry. He likes number 8, Arithmetic. Says the horse closed to win after coming in from Monmouth Park, and we love that Monmouth no whip to now getting a whip angle. The trainer in the last 14 days has recorded 4 wins, a second, and 3/3 in 11 starts. His second pick is Armando's team. He's won 2 races in a row, having the highest last race speed figure. Jockey Kevin Navarro has been on somewhat on fire. 3 wins, 3 seconds, and 12 starts. Finally, number 2. Beachside finished last in his last race, so Terry had to put him in there because he can't finish last again, but has an excuse as he came to the stretch extremely wide and returns to Finger Lakes, where he won his last race. What do you think about that, Tom?
I've only been to Finger Lakes once, and it was definitely an experience. And
did they party like Australians after the Melbourne Cup there? Or what?
No, not that crazy, but it was interesting, and I enjoyed it. It was a nice day. I was up in that area doing some other things, and figured why not stop in.
A little moshing after horse racing, nothing is wrong with that. Just throw a band in there that's like rah 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 with the heavy bass and deep electric guitar, and that would be the ideal afternoon of horse racing. We'll try to make an ideal afternoon. Since Del Mar is the place to be this weekend, we're going to focus on Del Mar for the rest of the week. Tom and I did a pick 4. Tom, coming into the situation, he demanded we do the early pick 4, not the late pick 4. Much like a rock star, Tom has his own demands we had to meet in order to accommodate him to be on the show today. So we're going to do the first pick 4. I guess, what do you call that? The opening pick 4? The early pick 4?
Early pick 4.
Yes, at Del Mar. So that starts in race number 2, Tom. That is 1 mile on the turf. Better get used to that because you're going to see 1 mile on the turf a lot this weekend. And the Breeders' Cup might be the most common race during the Breeders' Cup from what I've seen so far doing the wagering guide for Guaranteed Tip Sheet. This one is a optional claiming 80,000 non-winners of more than one lifetime for a purse of 72,000. Tom, looking at these races at the summer meet, there were 30, I think there were like 38 of them or something like that. or 54 of them, excuse me. 38 of them were won by closers and stalkers. The average horse was 4th or 5th at the first call, and the average field size was 6th. 6 horses. So you can see that typically horses come from off the pace. It didn't really look like there was an edge to getting any particular post position. So closers, Tom, on the turf at Del Mar is the way to go for 1 mile. Who do you like as your top choice?
Not the closer. I took one on the front end because they made a jockey change to Flavien Prat, and I think he can nurse that horse along the lead. I took number 3 as my single.
You took number 3. Well, this is the fly for, so we get to put a few extras in here, Tom. This is where we get to spend Terry type money.
For my bet.
Oh yes, for your bet, we'll be putting that up later.
That's my single.
But we'll be putting up the hot dog bets when we're done with our experiment here.
Yeah, and then my other choice in this race was number 1.
Number 1. So Tom liked the 5, the 3, and the 1. So we'll put Tom's 3 and 1, and we'll accommodate the guest on today's show. For me, I looked at the 5 horse as my top pick. Tom, that horse is the. Oh, by the way, you mentioned Flavien Prat nursing the horse. He is tops at Del Mar in terms of turf routes. I looked at the trainer and jockey stats for the summer meet, and he was number 1, which is not surprising, right? Sparkle Blue, that horse is ridden by Jose Ortiz coming in from the East Coast, so they're going to have to defend their turf against them. Horse is dropping in class, and when I ran the late pace figures, she had the best late pace numbers and should improve in her second start off a layoff. Did you get any opportunity to look at that one, Tom?
Yeah, I passed.
Tom passed.
I really like the 1 better. Saturday Night Girl. I tossed the last race, just all kinds of trouble, wide, the whole bit. Learning race in my mind. It was the first start for the new trainer. McCarthy is now going to always place horses correctly, and he took Johnny Velasquez as his rider for this, which I thought was an interesting choice because it's not somebody he normally uses.
Well, they was on the horse last time too, so maybe I do like Johnny Velasquez. I typically like him better on horses that come from off the pace. Seems like he's got that timing right in routes on like when to show up in the race. So I do like him better on routes than I do in speed races. My other pick, Tom, in here is the 7 horse, a little bit of a long shot. Blame It on Rose. Horse is going to be stretching out for the first time, going from 5 furlongs on turf to a mile on turf. I think based upon the horse's late pace figures that it's shown in most of its races, the change should not be difficult for this horse to overcome. And at 15-1 morning line odds, I feel like the horse offers some great value to hit on the early part of the pick 4. What do you think?
I passed. The breeding tells me it's more of a sprinter than wanting 2 turns. So at this point, being young horse, who knows what will happen?
Well, there are 2-year-olds, so anything can happen. So I'm going to put him in there. The way we do this, Tom, is we each get a lock. Mm-hmm. So you can veto any one of my horses by just simply saying, no, I don't want it. And the only way I can overcome that is by vetoing, by using my lock. I'm going to use my lock there.
No, I think putting a price in there is good. If she can handle those 2 turns, then she'll be right there. My question was, is she going to need a race before? It's late in the 2-year-old cycle, but she's still pretty young relative to when she was folded. So I'm going to say pass at this point, but certainly one to watch going forward.
So I'm going to lock it in, so you can pass on it. Okay. The maiden claiming 50,000 is the next race number 3, Tom. That is 6.5 furlongs. In the summer meet, they run it 33 times, 28 times, Tom. Speed horses won. In fact, 18 of the 33 races were won by the horse that got to the front, hit the quarter-mile marker first. So wire to wire is the way to go, and it looks to me like you want to have a post that's middle out. So speed works on this one. Are you going to go with the closer to start?
No.
Okay, good. Who are you going to start with?
Starting with number 1, Real Pouch. Showed speed in her last race, and she was pulling, then backed out. We're going to do a turf to dirt angle. Put a work in at LaSalle for 36-1. And I really think better results, and I think we're going to get a better price here.
Yeah, 15-1 morning line. It wasn't one I had, but as far as the early, it wasn't in my early pace numbers either. So let's hope that it can get to the early lead, keep that lead, dropping in class. First race was at Los Al, as you mentioned, on the dirt, but it did improve from race 1 to race 2. Looking to me, there's two horses here that have early speed. They're kind of chalky a little bit, but I'm going to start off with there's really not a chalk in this one. So I'm going to start off with number 3, Eye Candy Randy. This is a tip for the hat to our friends over at the Triple Clowns. I mean, what else does Randy bring to the show over there other than eye candy? But this is a horse that should be amongst the early leaders. I have it marked down as the horse with the best early pace numbers. It improved nicely in race number 2 off the bench last time out relative to the first race. So if there's some continued improvement for Eye Candy Randy, I think he can go wire to wire, Tom.
Yep.
Simple answer from Tom. All right, good.
Yep.
Who else do you like then?
You go with what's there. I mean, and I went with number 6, Indio Momo, on Calbred. It's a first time starter, top sire in California Square Eddy. It's the first fold, and the dam never raced. The works showed me that the horse could win, and that 36-1 was the key one. The trainer's not known for first-time winners, but he does like to run in the money. So certainly got to consider it for your exotics if you tend to want to drive yourself crazy with a Calbred race.
Well, Jessica Pfeiffer is pretty aggressive too, especially if she gets on the lead. So I think she'll push that horse to try to get to the front. And if she can't get it to the front, it's probably not one that likes to be at the front. So I would imagine they paid looks like a decent amount of money. $18,000 horse, not the most expensive horse, but not the least expensive by any measure either. So I had one other horse in here, Tom, but we can only go 4-3, 4-4. Do you feel like I feel like this is a race where we're going to need more horses because it is maiden claiming 50,000. As you mentioned, there is a little bit of opportunity to get a price. So far, we have a few in here. My other horse in my selections, Tom, was the 5 horse. That is Heaven's Music. It's another horse that's going to flip from the turf to dirt angle. It does have the second best early pace numbers, and it's been real close to breaking its maiden already. I feel like it has a really good shot to do it here today. Has raced at Del Mar twice with a second where it missed by just 1 3/4 lengths.
I looked at it and passed on it based on this race, but this is the kind of race where you kind of got to spread a little bit because who knows?
Yeah, 2-year-olds for maiden claiming 50,000, which is sort of like the bottom of the barrel at Del Mar, but not. I mean,
there's 20,000 maiden claimers, so those are the worst, and the worst to handicap. Indeed.
All right, so I don't think we can go any deeper here.
No.
All right, so race number 3 is another 1-mile turf race. Again, I said it's going to be one that closers typically win. Tom went ahead last time and put a speed horse in as his top selection. He mentioned that he has singled to 3 in race number 2. In my hot dog pick 4, I went ahead and singled the 7 horse here, and that is Wilder Than Most. The horse has run its best races on turf and has some of the best late pace figures in the field. But I expect that it's going to be close to not too far off the pace, like tracking the leaders. But it's improved its speed figure 4 consecutive races. A 5th consecutive time will be more than enough to get the job done because last time it ran a top speed number in the field.
Yep. I have it in considering, but I didn't put it in my picks. I went with number 6, Tropical Terror. Drops from an allowance race, which had issues at the start, but still ran 3rd. Never won at a mile, but has always been very competitive in the races. So I always like to see that. He's one of the horses coming from the layoff. There are a few of them in here. Has average works, but because it took him a long time to win, he did it after a layoff and in a race that was 1.25 mile turf race. So I found that really interesting. Coming off that layoff, he's done it before, so maybe he'll do it again.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That his lone win did come off a shorter rest than the one that he's getting right now.
Right.
But one of the things that I kind of stands out to me, I look back at the and he does have the strongest late pace numbers in the field. But as I'm doing the work for the wager guide for the horse for guaranteed tip sheet on this weekend's Breeders' Cup, I went to see which jockeys do the best at what distances and surfaces and so forth. Giovanni Franco, you may not have heard of him, a lot of folks, especially if you're unfamiliar with the West Coast circuit, but he had the second best turf route numbers behind Flavian. So don't sleep on Giovanni. I'm not going to sleep on Giovanni here either. All right, Tom, I think this is the race where we only need to have maybe one more because it has the least amount of horses in it, I think, of all the races we're covering. So is there any horse that you had besides the 6 or the 7?
Yes, I took number 3. I liked its speed number from the last race. And off that, I think it's got a good chance, but it likes to run third. And it's done it 4 times. It does have speed, but I think it'd be better suited sitting behind the pace and then coming on. And it would not surprise me if they get into a pocket with a little cover and look for a hole and go.
Yeah, if you look at it's gone up front and it's also rated. So I think Feriano has some good versatility in his game. Unfortunately, he won't be able to use his game to create it. He just got gelded. So he's an unhappy horse in this race, Tom. Yeah. So I think he's going to show that displeasure and head to the front.
That may help him too.
Yes, and calm him down a bit.
He may have been a handful in the barn and they had to do something.
So in the event there's a scratch here, Tom, any horse that you would also consider, or is that it?
Yeah, 4. Dr. Troutman. Claimed 2 back for 16. They tried 20. Then they laid the horse off before this race. It's been good on the turf in its past life. It's got some speed, so it could be on the lead, could not. I like the work of the 1 minute and 2. And its turf record is, more seconds, but 3 wins on 29 starts, 7 seconds, and 4 thirds. So it does like to run on the turf.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's the only place it's won, right? In fact, it accounts for the majority of its in the money finishes as well. So Edwin Maldonado will be trying to cash a check on Dr. Troutman. All right, Tom, the last race of the day is, or at least not of the day, of our early pick 4, yes, is at 6.5. So we went 1 mile, 6.5, 1 mile, 6.5. So we don't really have to do a lot of extra work to do the track bias. Again, speed, high percentage of horses, over 50%, winning at going wire to, or not, over 50% winning wire to wire, Tom. Looks like outside horses might have a little bit of advantage. I started with and this was a tough race for me because I had about 4 horses that I all felt were pretty similar in there. I'm going to start with the 4 horse for me, Speed Pass. Speed Pass last time out did anything but show speed. It came out, got off to an awkward start, was way wide, started 10th of 11, 6.5 lengths behind the leaders. But when you look back just 1 race after that, for pretty much the entirety of that horse's other 9 races, has been really close to the front. And I expect that you'll see the horse return to the front today. And if it does run those early pace numbers, they do have the best. He does have the best early fractions, was the favorite last out. So I expect Emily Ellingwood to be another aggressive rider because she's kind of aggressive too on front runners. And she's getting a nice little weight break here. So the weight break, the early speed could be enough for Speed Pass to go ahead and go wire to wire again.
Well, and I'll take one other statistic that's, I think, very important. The trainer has a 29% win record with second starts after the claim. So may have needed a race.
So who do you like? Who's your top pick?
That was number 4.
Oh, so we agreed on something. Fantastic. We can wrap it up now. Who else do you like?
Okay. I took number 1. Rana Mao. Drops in class from last effort, but he had issues in that race. He drops in distance. And the comment I thought was interesting, needing more. well, maybe the 6.5 furlong is the needing more spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the horse. The low sal races are always kind of, when I'm looking at the California races, they're almost like toss outs for me because the track is so different than what they're running at on other tracks. But I look back at the Del Mar form. The Del Mar form is pretty good. The horse has got to win 2 seconds in 4 races over the track. Is coming back from a little bit of a rest. Horse has had a difficult time making it 2 races in a row. So it'd be interesting to see how it comes off the bench, because it hasn't won coming off the bench since back in his days at Churchill. That's just one of the reasons why I downgraded it a little bit. For me, again, early pace being a factor here. Of the horses that I felt like had a chance, because the 2 and the 7 have the best early pace. The 2 is coming out of like 1,000-foot races, and to me, quarter horse races or 4 furlong races at low sal doesn't measure up. And then the 7 horse, who does flash a lot of speed but just fades hard at the end of every race. So I couldn't go with either one of them. So the next horse in terms of that early pace that I could go with was Charge Cash, the 8 horse Abel Cedillo. It's a horse that's also making its second start for Acclaim for trainer Doug O'Neill. And that hits at a 35% rate. The horse last time out did run the top last race speed figure. So I feel like the 8 has a very good trainer angle, has the right outside post with speed, fits the track bias. That's my other horse.
Well, and I also thought it had 2 works that were interesting. One was a maintenance work, which was the last work and slower, but it put in a 46 and 4. And to me, they were looking to get some speed out of this horse with that kind of a work. And so that may be in the back of Doug O'Neill's mind that this horse needed a little more foundation.
Finally, you get the last pick, Tom. We have one more here. Since you're the guest, I'll let you close it out, and hopefully with another price that can bring us home a fat winner, stuff our pockets full of cash, in the words of Carl Broberg, and help us set up our bankroll for the Breeders' Cup this weekend. We missed yesterday in our pick by our alternative horse came in and won at the very end. We had like the 3 horses behind him. I was so salty because I could have had the hot dog, and we could have had the prime rib, or the fly 4 as we call it. But we're going to close out today. Beginner's luck with Tom. Who do you like as your last pick here?
Well, I did go with the 7, Rebel Warrior. I had that. I put that in there because I second start off the layoff, and it was the last race was just an awful race, and I just tossed it. Best efforts are on the front end without question, and at running at this level for a while, but maybe this is the breakthrough here after not the greatest race.
Mm-hmm.
And so and you're looking at the front end runners. It's going to have a little look see because it's coming out of the 7 hole, but positioning and getting forward, it could be right there at the end.
Indeed. I kind of like the fact that it does have a history of improving in the second race off a layoff, which is what the horse is going to be experiencing today. It does have some really giddy up and go. So if it improves and it can get some giddy up and go and stay there, it has a shot at a nice price at 15-1. For me, if there's a scratch, Tom, the one horse that I would be putting in there is the 5 horse. If there are a scratch, is there a horse that you would put in there?
No, I just had 1, 4, 7, and 8 in my play.
Oh, all right. Well, we mostly agree on that for sure. Yeah. So there is Tom and Rich's first fly 4. Let's hope we have a little bit of beginner's luck, Tom. In race number 2, the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 7. That's a 1 mile on the turf. Closer should get the job done, although Tom did like the speed horse on top. Race number 3, we have the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 6. The 1 horse Tom and I agreed on right off the get-go is the 3 horse. Again, that's 6.5 furlongs. We're over half the winners in this summer meet were sprinters that got to the lead, didn't give it up. Race 4 is our weak link in the armor, 3, 6, and 7. Again, a mile on the turf, hoping for some closers. If there's a scratch, 4 horse would be the nice replacement. Or if you have a deeper buckets, you can go ahead and throw it in there too. Race number 5 is back to 6.5 furlong speed. Tom and I both agree on the 1, the 4, the 8, and the 7. And in the event there's a scratch, the 5 horse could be a abled replacement. That wraps up the fly 4. Tom, what are your thoughts about that?
Good luck. I think that 4th race is probably going to be the one that we trip up on.
We're not going to trip up, Tom. I'm always expecting the best. Maybe some horse will beat us, but it's not because we made a mistake. It's because the horse beat us. So let's take a look real quick at our fly fours. Tom, as he mentioned, in race number 2, single to 3, we both kind of had a similar strategy in terms of cost, where we went in race 3, the 4 deep, both of us, and then we just alternated on the races that we were going to single. So we both saw the races the same way, which is interesting to me because I hope that means we've got it right. I don't like when Terry and we're different on different races, because that means he's viewing the races differently than I am. So Tom and I agree. Those are the 2 spots that you should add your money. Today, Tom, I'm expecting a little beginner's luck from you as we do our 3-piece parlay. You stayed at Del Mar. Tell us about the horses that you like in your 3P Sasquatch parlay.
I'm looking a little bit for prices, even though in the 7th race, I think that's going to be the favorite, Moonlight d'Oro. Marantz is not my top choice, and I did have a single in that race on my pick 3. Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I did. But I'm looking for the price, not playing for. If I play the one I think is going to win, it's not going to pay anything. So I'd like to get a little bit of a price there. And Star Chewbacca, I just went with the name because
that's going to give everybody a ton of confidence. I just went with the name.
It's a pretty silly name, so. And I don't know if I'd want to be calling that in the race callers. So that would be a real challenge.
Indeed. Well, I stuck with the big track today. I went ahead and went with Churchill Downs to give folks something else to do. We have race number 5 at Churchill, the 1 Tumbling Sky. Race number 6, the 3-horse Heart Rhythm. Race number 7, the 5 Buckingham Prince. Then they kick him out. He lives here with his wife now, right? Yeah, out in California.
Yeah.
In any case, that's my fly. Yesterday, I missed on the 3rd leg. My horse ran 4th, unfortunately. Looked like a good coming out of the turn. Had the first 2. Tom, like I said, I'm expecting some beginner's luck out of Tom. As we call it, Terry and I, we're hunting for Sasquatch because these things are almost as difficult to find as Bigfoot is on that A&E show with Bobo, whatever the guy's name is.
I'm hunting for Chewbacca, so I'll go with that.
Yeah, similar thing for sure. And you can find these, the Churchill Down picks are, 2 of them are best bets that we have over at Guaranteed Tip Sheet for the Churchill Downs race. We have every race covered, every track has 3 best bets in it. 2 of those are best bets. The 3rd one I didn't put in there because it's going to be too close to lining up when the show ends. So I wanted to give everybody a chance to have an opportunity to see it. Speaking of our sponsor, Guaranteed Tip Sheet, we're working on, as I mentioned, the wager guide. And we're going to have a little bit of a preview for the first Breeders' Cup race so you can get a sense of what it looks like. The first Breeders' Cup race is the Juvenile. It is the Juvenile Turf Sprint. It's race number 6 on Friday's card. Going to go off at about 5:30 Eastern time, Tom. And if you look at this particular race, you'll see what we do. We cover the race, the distance and surface bias, the post position bias, the top contenders. I have Averly Jane, and I know Tom, he likes Go Bears Go as his top pick. I have him rated a little bit lower because out of form lately, but has been really solid at 5 furlongs. So scares the living daylights out of me in that respect. But it is a wide open race, Tom. I think you'd agree with me on that.
Yep. I would 100% agree with that. The challenge here is, with Go Bears Go, my selection, it is a front runner, and it does like to go. So in that sense, it should be very interesting. I think that the wild cards in here are like Hierarchy and Coffee Maker. Coffee Maker, I don't know about. Wesley Ward. They've touted that, but on the other hand, that kind of thing. It just back and forth, and they touted really heavy for Royal Ascot, and it just did absolutely nothing.
Indeed. So, well, you mentioned it's going to be at the front. It's a 5 furlong race, and if you look at the bias, they had 31 of the 40 races. 31 of them were won by early speed types with more than with half, 20 of the 40 winning wire to wire. So I think Go Bears Go will be up on the lead, as we mentioned here in our early race outlook. It's hard to say what some of the international horses will do, but I do know from spending my Fridays with Tom doing the foreign Fridays, as Terry calls them, Go Bears Go we'll try for the front. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and again, I think it's much more suited for that 5 furlong race than the 7 furlong race that it raced last time. And against some good company too. So, as a continuing developing 2-year-old, I think they got a little too ambitious initially. Maturity will play a role in all these horses, and good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And you mentioned the pace. We go ahead and we break down every horse where they like to be, early pace, stalkers, closers. We do make a case of the early race outlook for every single horse. And then we have the play, how we figure it's going to play out. Our picks. Here you see the picks for that race, exacta, trifecta, some suggested wagering that you can go ahead and obviously make your own. But we do this for every single race. And I can tell you, this is just the unedited Word document that we put together. It's a much prettier PDF, and it's probably going to be, I'm going to say, close to 10,000 words long, maybe a little bit longer. So there's going to be plenty of information in there for you to use this weekend at the Breeders' Cup. So head on over to Guaranteed Tip Sheet. Make sure you pick that up so that you can benefit from all of that hard work. Tom, any final thoughts before we get out of here on your first day in the horse racing today?
Well, I actually like my pick 3 better than my chances than I like my pick 4 chances. So I can get past that first race in the pick 3 with a single. I've got a good chance of hitting it.
So your pick 3, is that match up with your hot dog, or how? You have the 1, 4, 6, 7.
Well, no. What I did was I actually picked different races. I went with 6, 7, and 8.
Race 6, 7, and 8. Well, what horses did you like in race 6, 7?
I picked 3 in the 6th race as my single. I went with number in the 7th race. I had 2 horses, 2 and 3. And in the 8th race, I spread out a little. I went 2, 3, 5, 6, and 8, and it's a whopping $5.
Whopping $5. Okay, for 50 cents, right?
Yep.
So make sure you check that out. Well, write that down. Tom, can you run those numbers again? Race 6, you singled to 3.
I singled to 3.
Race 7?
Very good horse. Racing much better company than this bunch. 7, 2, and 3. And then the 8th race, I went 2, 3, 5, 6, and 8.
Yeah, in the emails back and forth when Tom sent me his demands that we do the early pick 4, said if I do the late pick 4, I'm going to all the last race like Terry.
Yep, that was my feeling, because that's the what is it? I think that's the maiden claiming 20K race, and those are just a mess.
Indeed, they are, for sure.
And you can get a price on those without any problem. I would love to see the numbers sometimes on maiden claimings at certain tracks, because it's got to be all over the place.
They probably are. One thing that's not all over the place, if you haven't done it yet with the Breeders' Cup coming up, Tom, Terry, and I last Friday got together and we discussed just about every single international, like 40 international, 42, 43 international horses, and how they stack up in every race that they were listed in. Obviously, some of them might not be running, and they might be in different races now that everything's been declared. But you're going to want to go watch that at Horse Racing Radar TV, because these international horses tend to pop up and usually at good prices at the Breeders' Cup, because a lot of the North American bettors overlook them because there's not a lot of information available to them in the programs. So make sure you go check that out. And while you're there, subscribe to Horse Racing Radar TV. If you like what you saw, not thumbs down, Tom. Give us a thumbs up. That puts us, thumbs up, thumb down, right? What do they say? Good press, bad press, it doesn't matter just as long as you're getting press, right? Yes, indeed. But if you do give us a thumbs up, that ratio helps us move up the algorithms for Google and YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and that way when we go live, you'll know about it for sure. Tom will be back as our guest again tomorrow, filling in for Terry as we wind up the week with Del Mar as our pick 4 track again.
And that will be another interesting day, because like this today, a lot of the jockeys that are in for the Breeders' Cup are getting rides ahead of time, and I always thought that was a great idea to try to get a race or two in prior to any kind of big racing day.
Mm-hmm.
Get a feel for especially if you haven't been there in a while. Get a feel for the track. Get a feel for if you can get it both turf and dirt, even better. And we've got a few of them that are doing just that.
Yeah, there's quite a few East Coast jockeys in there as well, and a few from the Churchill area. Should be a fun day. I think they're going to get some good bets. I think you're going to start to see the money pool swell as people start to come into town, start getting ready for the Breeders' Cup. We'll certainly be ready for the Breeders' Cup, Tom. I'm looking forward to tomorrow, to day number 2 together. Till then, folks, as always, we hope that all of your bets are winners and that every single one of our pick 4 picks ends up in the winner's circle. Tom, we'll see you in 23 and 3.